Welcome to Hardware Asylum. We're back working on the Retro PC Subwoofer project. If you checked out the last video, you'll know that we assembled the box from bare MDF. We covered it in an oak veneer, stained it black, and then painted it with an automotive clear. What you'll notice here is that the sides are no longer high gloss, and the front is actually a lot glossier than it was before. You can see my hand in the reflection. And that is because I spent a considerable amount of time sanding the entire box back. We covered it in a polyurethane to protect the wood, and then I covered that in a clear satin, which has given us this matte finish. And then the front, since it was already primered and painted a flat black, I went ahead and painted it a gloss black. Overall, I think it turned out extremely nice, and this is really kind of what I was after. I was also a bit torn on if I wanted the front panel to be a gloss black or the matte black like it was in the original video. So comment down below with your thoughts on what it is that I should have done differently with this box. In this particular video though, we are going to get everything installed. It may not get fired up, but we're going to get everything put into the box the way that it was intended. Starting with a 24-volt power supply. We have a couple pairs of binding posts. We got these from Dayton Audio. They're nice gold. We're going to have to drill a hole through the chassis and then bolt these in place. And then as you can see, there's a couple of tabs in here. We're going to solder those to our speaker wire, which will then connect to the famed Tang Band 5¼ inch subwoofer. These are the same drivers that we used in the prototype boxes. I really like them, and they're what this enclosure was intended for. Of course, I do have two of those. After that, I have a 3D printed mounting bracket, and this will hold our amplifier. That is that 100-watt Dayton Audio unit. It has a built-in DSP and Bluetooth. We're not going to be using the Bluetooth, but we will be using the DSP to set crossover points. This is a bracket that I made based off of the specifications of this amplifier. Should mount up just like that. Gives us a little bit of clearance underneath, and some convenient holes around the outside to mount it to the back of the box. And one thing that I was hoping that people would catch in the previous video is that when I did a test fit of the Tang Band subwoofer on the box after I did my rabbiting countersink, there was a bit of gap around the outside. So what I've done is I printed some colored rings that will go and fill in that gap. It also helps dress up the subwoofer underneath. Nobody will really be able to see it, but that little bit of accent color will really stand out once people start to inspect this box when we take it to shows and show it off in other videos. The final item to be installed will be some feet. These are items that I 3D printed. Give you a close look here. A nice elegant round post. I'll just screw into the bottom and keep the subwoofer up off the ground so that the woofers can breathe without sucking in a bunch of dirt, cat hair, and various other nefarious stuff that is on the floor. So we have a lot of work to do, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. We'll have the camera in the background so you can see what it is that I'm doing. I believe this is the layout that we're going to go with. I have my binding post for the subwoofers up on top, amplifiers along the left, power supply is going to be at the bottom. This area right here is going to be reserved for audio input, outputs, and the various dials that will be required to operate all these amplifiers. Well, we are to the point where I'm starting to wire everything up. As you can see, I have the power supply mounted and a power cord attached. As you saw down here, I installed the binding posts. I wired these up individually, so each speaker has its own set of binding posts. So that will make it a bit challenging when we go to wire it up. These are supposed to be in parallel, but I now have the option to go series if I so choose. Over here is our Parts Express amplifier. This is the KAB100M version 2 or V2. This is the first time using one of these amps. So I'm going to be referring to the instructions and we'll see how far I get. On the other end, I basically soldered these wires into a little adapter. It doesn't look very pretty, but basically it's a piece of speaker wire that I flattened the ends and then solder them across so they don't come undone. The idea here is that what we do is we back out our bottom binding post. Red is right. We basically run this down through the hole and it runs into the binding post on the bottom. As such, tighten these down. The part that I flattened will lock them in place and it will basically bind the two positives together, which is what we need for a parallel connection. This may not translate with it hooked up to the amplifier, but basically what we do is connect positive negative and we should see what our resultant ohm load is. As you can see, it's 1.9, which is pretty close to 2, which will give us our full 100 watt output of this amplifier. Alright, we have a bit of a rat nest of wires here, but for very good reason. We have a working subwoofer. So let me quickly go over what we got here. Down here, this is the DSP interface module. This has a USB-C connection to the laptop to interface with the DSP software. It's actually pretty cool. We have our power LED. I'm going to swap this out for a green one. I have a couple of other colors in the pack. Over here is our volume knob. We were able to hook that into the amplifier board down there. We'll control the overall amplification of the subwoofer. And then we have our input device, for instance, the Focus right here, with its own volume control that will further override that. This way, we won't overdrive our subwoofers and we can tune the subs to the way that the high-end speakers are crossed over in their amplitude as well. And then we have the power switch over here, which will turn the system on and off. Once that is powered on, we can go into the software. And this is where we can set our crossover frequencies with the low pass filter down here in the bottom. For some reason, Dayton Audio pre-programmed these into mono mode, which hit frequency 3 and 4 at 220 Hertz. I adjusted that to 150, but in stereo I had it set in bypass, so the line was flat, and that was sending all frequencies to the subwoofer. It was pretty cool to be able to hear all sorts of sounds coming out of there, but that's not exactly what I wanted. So it turns out that when running this 100M version 2 amplifier, you need to set a low pass filter in the stereo mode, even though the stereo input on the amplifier is mixed down to mono on the board itself. Now, I know we can't end that video without hearing some sounds coming from the subwoofer, so here we go. So as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.